Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Good evening, everybody. With that bell commences the evening's Q&A session that we do here every night. And so between 7 and 8:30 every night we answer questions here. My name is Kaustubha Das. I suppose you could say I began practicing Bhakti Yoga nearly 40 years ago. It was 87. So we're almost hitting that 4-decade mark. And I lived as a monk in the Bhakti tradition for about my first 14 years. And since then I've been teaching Bhakti Yoga, Bhakti Vedanta, right? The understanding of truth as it's been handed down in this lineage that is said to go back, all the way back to the origin of all truth, to Sri Krishna. So the way this works is that one of you brave souls puts forward a question, and that gets us started. Every night someone has to be the first person. And there we go. we've got our start. So Cersei from Montreal. What is your question?
I'm wondering how we can continue to trust Krishna if we have trust issues.
How do we trust Krishna if we have trust issues? You know, I'll tell you something. The more that I examine the sacred texts about bhakti, the more I begin to feel that if we're to take up the fundamental question of why are we stuck in this material world, it has a lot to do with what you're bringing up. In other words, the whole tradition of Vedanta is saying that by nature we are eternal, by nature we are conscious, by nature we're full of bliss. Somehow we're not experiencing that right now. At least not all the time. And therefore somehow we're not experiencing our nature. Something's interfering with that. Why is it? Why is it that we're not experiencing that? And the more that I examine it, the more that I see the parallels between someone with trust issues and our existence in this material world being essentially a lack of trust. Essentially a lack of trust. The great sages in the Bhakti tradition have defined surrender. We often hear this word surrender. We hear it in the Bhagavad Gita. We hear it in the poetry and the songs of the tradition. Sometimes the word sharanagati is used. Have you heard that word? Sharanagati, surrender. And the word surrender, a lot of times it has a bit of a negative connotation. That's the kind of thing that you do when your army loses and your country is being invaded, and we say we surrender. And that's like the last thing you want to hear. You know, that's the last thing you want to have to say. But what if we think of surrender? Surrender is used in many ways. Sometimes it's used in a romantic sense. You know, sometimes a person is resisting someone else's love. And pretty much all the different romance movies have this kind of theme in them in one way or another. Someone is expressing their love, someone's resisting it, and eventually the expressions of the love of the one person eventually overwhelms the other person with their love, and then they surrender, which means they stop resisting. To stop resisting. And so what is it that we're resisting here in this world? Krishna, we read some of the Bhagavad Gita last night here. Some of Krishna's expressions of love that he's saying to Arjuna at the end of the 18th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita are very touching. I have one friend, very colorful character, and he loves the Bhagavad Gita. And whenever he speaks about the Bhagavad Gita, he says the love song. He calls it the love song. It's because, especially at the end, we have Krishna expressing Arjuna, Arjuna, I'm telling you all of this because you're so dear to me. Because you're my very dear friend, I'm speaking this to you for your own good. He says this right after he says that God is in your heart. And he says, surrender unto him utterly. Not partially. Not, well, I'm going to surrender a little, but I'm also going to hold on to something else that I think may be my shelter in this world. But full surrender means you are my shelter. Surrender unto him utterly. I'm telling you this because you're my dear friend. But we have issues. If you take the whole school of Vedanta, you could say it generally has two different schools, right? The way that it's been interpreted over the centuries, you could divide it into two different schools. One you could call Advaita Vedanta, one you could call Bhakti Vedanta. The Advaita Vedantins, when they read these texts, they conclude that personhood, individuality, the distinctions between you and me, in truth, they don't exist. That when you attain to the highest truth, there's no more you, me, everybody else. There's only one. Okay? They think that any conception of form or individuality is illusion. It's an imposition, a mental imposition placed on top of truth. And to achieve that highest truth, all of those distinctions have to dissolve. And think about that. Let's think about this carefully. Because if we look at this world, we see that our pain, our suffering, is generally, we can tie to a form or conflict between individuals. Right? Like we have a form of a body. The body grows old, the body becomes diseased, the body becomes injured in different ways. Ultimately, the body dies. And there's so much pain through all of that, right? Or we might have a possession, some kind of material possession. We own it for some time. It excites us. It gives us some kind of thrill or some kind of comfort, some kind of shelter, some kind of safety. And then that form begins to change or deteriorate or is taken from us in one form or another by the force of time. We have it at one point in time, and as time moves forward, we don't have it anymore. We experience pain. So it's not illogical to conclude that our pain in this world is due to form, and it's due to our individuality, or let's call it duality, right? There's you, there's me. We're in some sense we're distinct from one another. They conclude that if these are the causes of pain, then the realm of freedom of pain must be a realm free of form and free of relationship, of individuality, of any type of duality. Okay? It's logical. But what the Bhakti Vedantins say is not necessarily. Granted, the forms of this material world are temporary because they're made out of what they call prakriti, material energy. And the nature of material energy is that it's constantly in a state of change. It's constantly in a state of flux. So when you invest in it, you invest your heart in it, sooner or later, you're going to be disappointed and you're going to feel that pain. And similarly, we find with relationships in this world, when we invest our heart in them, generally it leads to some type of pain, some type of suffering. Yes? Okay. Even if it's a good relationship, it comes to an end at some point, and then we suffer. But the Bhaktivedantins say, but what if there's form beyond Prakriti? What if there's such a thing as form composed of Brahman? Right? Form composed of Brahman. Form that is made or composed not of material energy, but of spiritual energy. The spiritual energy is beyond the law of time, unaffected by change. What if there were form that were unaffected by change? Then one could invest their heart in that form, and never become disappointed, never feel that pain. And when we look at relationships, we look at conflict. What is the nature of that conflict? Sometimes the yogis use this example, that if you have a still pond and you take a pebble, you toss it into the pond, it comes down, and what happens? You get these concentric ripples. Very pleasing, isn't it? Even seeing a photograph of it, it's like, oh, it's nice, right? There's a center, and everything is smoothly, harmoniously, um, nicely arranged in smooth concentric circles that move out together. And it brings peace to the mind. It's kind of satisfaction to the mind. But what if you take one pebble and throw it here, and you take another pebble and you throw it over there, and you take another pebble and throw it there? In other words, rather than have one center, now you have many centers. Do we get a nice, peaceful ripples? No. You get conflicting ripples. And it doesn't give peace to the mind. It creates a kind of like dissonance. You understand? Some uncomfortable feeling in the mind. That's the nature of relationships in this world, because every individual has their own agenda. Right? Every individual has their own agenda. Sometimes we use the word love, and sometimes we use the phrase unconditional love. You've heard that one before. Even the phrase seems to strike some type of chord. Yes, unconditional love. Love that can be centered around another, right? There's a definition given for love in a 500, now it's more like 550-year-old text. Well, maybe it's about 500-year-old text, called the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. How many of you have not heard of the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita? Okay, this book it's a big 17-volume book, originally written in the Bengali language, that shares the most beautiful and deepest teachings on Vedanta and on Bhakti Yoga. And it was composed by an incredibly beautiful and incredibly deeply insightful sage. His name was Krishna Das Kaviraj. Krishna Das Kaviraj. He lived at what many Bhakti yogis consider to be the holiest place in the universe, which is called Radha Kund. It's in Vrindavan. It's about a 6-hour drive from here. He stayed on the bank of that lake, and he heard about bhakti from the deepest sages there. And he learned and gained so much from them that as he was growing older, the other sages said, you need to share this wisdom. And he was like, I'm too old. He was very old at the time. He said, I'm writing this book and my hand is shaking so much from my old age. I don't know if I'm going to be able to complete it. But he was pouring his pure mind and heart into this text. And in one chapter, he's describing the love of Srimati Radharani for Krishna, which in this tradition is considered to be the very pinnacle of, not only the pinnacle of love, but the very pinnacle of consciousness. The very highest state of awareness that exists is within the mind and the heart of Sri Radha. Everybody now around here, they always, when you see people, they say, Radhe, Radhe. You notice that? Some years back, not so much, but it's this love of Radha Krishna is spreading more and more. So he's writing about the love of Radha, the love that Radha has in her heart. And he gives a definition of love. Would you like to hear that definition? Yes? I need to hear you say yes enthusiastically, or this is just too important and esoteric and beautiful. If you aren't eager for it, then I have to keep it to myself. Okay. He said that when the happiness of the object of your love, when the happiness of the person that you love becomes your own happiness, that is love. You understand? That it means that Maybe, how many mothers do we have here in our audience today? Raise your hand if you're a mother. We have one over here. We have one over, any other mothers here? Mothers? Madres? No? Okay. Mother may know this maybe better than anyone walking the earth. They say that the love that the mother has for the child is the closest thing to the pure spiritual love of the spiritual realm. You agree? Yes, you know what it's like. When you hold that little child, your own child, for the first time, the child is feeling the love of the mother. And the child's looking up and like, oh, this is so nice. But the mother, what's going on in her heart is much more than what's going on. It's like the heart is just melting completely. Yes? Right? So the mother feels when the child is safe, when the child is content, when the child is comfortable and healthy and happy, I feel happy. And even if I'm staying up all night and sick myself and, losing my mind because it's so hard to take care of this child sometimes, if the child is cared for and the child is happy, the mother's happy. And if the child is not well, if the child is sick and suffering in some way, no matter how much comfort the mother has, no matter how healthy the mother is, no matter what kind of material circumstances that she has for her pleasure, she can be living in a beautiful house and have wonderful food and so many other nice things are there, but she cannot be at peace, she cannot be happy until her child is well. True? Right? So the happiness of the one that you love becomes your happiness. Our problem in the material world is we don't have that kind of love so much. We're always thinking about ourselves and our own circumstances. Right? Most of our love is mixed with some type of impurity, some kind of selfishness. And therefore there's conflict. Now there's no one center. There's many, many, many centers. But the Bhakti Yogis are saying, but what if we were all centered around one center? Then even though there would be duality, there wouldn't be disharmony. And they're saying that there is one center or one root of all existence. Right? Often his names involve the word mula. Mula means root. That just like a tree has one root, right? It has many, many leaves. Sometimes here in India you can see some old trees, very old trees. And sometimes I don't know how many leaves one tree may have on it. Thousands and thousands and thousands of leaves. Sometimes I wonder, is 1,000,000 leaves on that tree or even more? So many leaves, one root. And that one root system there, it nourishes every single leaf. Yes? There's not one leaf that's on that tree that's not being nourished by the root. Every one of them is dependent on the root of the tree. Right? This is how the sages said this is the nature of our existence. If we go back to the ancient Upanishads, how many of you are not familiar with the Upanishads, or at least heard of them? Raise your hand if you're not familiar. It's okay, don't be shy. Everybody's heard. A little bit, maybe. Okay. Very ancient texts spoken between sages in the forest, speaking about the highest truths. And within those texts, there was one very important verse. It says, Nityo Nityanam, Chaitanas Chaitananam. Nitya means, does anyone know? Nitya. I'm sorry, I can't hear. It means eternal. Eternal. Something that's nitya. Always, it means like always, like eternal. Nityo Nityanam means amongst the many eternal beings, there's one eternal being. Chaitanas Chaitananam. Chaita means conscious. Amongst the many conscious beings, there's one conscious being. Notice that we spoke about Sat Chit Ananda before. Sat means eternal. Chit means conscious. Right? So amongst the many eternals, there's one. Every living being is eternal. But amongst the unlimited eternal living beings, there's one special one. Nityo Nityanam Chaitanas Chaitananam. Amongst the many, many unlimited billions, trillions, quintillions and more of conscious living beings. There's one conscious being. Nityo nityanam chaitanas chaitananam eko bahunam yo vidadati kaman. The many are dependent on the one. Just like the many leaves are dependent on the one root. It's their nature, it's their constitution. Or in Sanskrit, it would be said, it's their dharma. It's the very way that they are composed. Independence. I don't mean to say independence. I mean they are composed with dependence on their source. Right? This conception of dharma is really important. You've all heard the word dharma before. Yes? I'm gonna zoom way out, and eventually I'm gonna zoom back into your question. Okay? It'll come. But this word dharma, in the yoga tradition, dharma is understood in two ways. Sometimes dharma is translated as duty. You've heard that before. Sometimes it's translated as religion. There's another way it's translated, a really important way. Something's essence. Something's essence. I'll tell you a story. Would you like to hear a story from my own personal life? I was probably like about 25 years old. So that's a long time ago now. That's 35 years ago. 35 years ago, is that right? Yeah, 35 years ago. Whew. And I was in the place that I just came from just a few days ago. Sri Dham Mayapur, the birthplace of Sri Chaitanya, an incredibly special holy place in Bengal, on the banks of the Ganga. Right? This river will flow all the way down to there. And I woke up early in the morning. There's very beautiful sunrises there. And I was taking a walk down a quiet road. And I was doing a little kind of morning walking meditation. And hardly anybody was really up yet. The sun was just coming up. And as I got towards the end of the road that's kind of winding along the side of the bank of the Ganges River, an Indian gentleman came up to me. And he sold mridangas, the drums that they're playing in here. And he said, "Would you like to buy a mridanga?" And I was only like, it was like about 5:50 a.m. in the morning. I didn't have any money with me. I was like, "Thank you very much. I'm not interested in the drum. But good morning to you. Hare Krishna." And he said, "Where are you from?" Which is a very common question that Westerners are asked when they come to India. So I said, "I'm from New York City." So he said, "You're from New York City, you're from the United States?" I said, "Yes." He says, "Can you help me?" I said, "I don't know. What kind of help do you need?" He said, "I have something from the United States, and I don't know how to use it." I said, "Okay, well, I can try." He said, "Come with me into my house." His house was, it was right there on the side of the road, and it was about the size of this tent. It was just like very, very one room, tiny house. And he brought me in. And there was a bed in there. That was about all that there was in this room. And he sat me down on the floor, and he closed all the shutters of the windows, which to me indicated he had something very secret in there, and he didn't want his neighbors to know what he had. And then he sat down in front of me on the floor, and I said, "So what is it that you have?" He said, "I have a heater from the United States, and I don't know how to use it." I said, "Okay, well, let's see it." So he reached under the bed and he slid out a cardboard box. He put it right in front of me. And I opened up the box and looked inside, and I didn't see a heater. What I saw was a waffle iron. Right? Everyone know what a waffle iron is? Right? It makes this, it's a press that you pour this batter in, and you press it, and then you pour maple syrup on top. So I said, "Sir, I'm really sorry to tell you this, but this is not a heater. This is a waffle iron." And I tried to explain to him what a waffle is. I said, "It's kind of like a very big jalebi." I just had to disappoint him, you know. I don't know what happened if someone cheated him. You know, maybe said this is a heater and they sold it to him and he maybe spent a good amount of money on it, but he was very disappointed, and I'm sorry. But why do I tell this story? Because The waffle iron is designed in a particular way. It's designed to make waffles. It's not designed to heat a room. If you turn it on, I suppose it heats the room a little bit, but it's not its purpose to heat the room. Its purpose is to make waffles. And when it's making waffles, it's doing exactly what it's designed to do. It's perfectly situated. And in Sanskrit, we call that it's performing its dharma, its true purpose, what it was designed to do. Does that make sense? Yes. Question related to this?
Yeah, I was gonna ask you before you started the story, like which connotation, purpose is it? Because that's how I know I've been taught that dharma means purpose.
Yes.
So was that number 3 essence that you said, or was that
Yes.
apart from the 3 that you mentioned?
Right. That's a good question. She's asking, I mentioned that the word is used in different contexts. Thank you for this question. And here we're speaking, when we say this dharma, we're saying something's essence. That thing that you cannot remove from an object, right? Like they say the dharma of sugar is sweetness, right? You can't take sweetness out of sugar. Sugar is sweet by nature, and that's what it does. It sweetens things, right? Now the yogis say that every object, there's not one object in existence that doesn't have its dharma, that doesn't have its essence. You could also say purpose here. That every object has its purpose to fulfill. This microphone has a purpose. What is it? Amplify sound. That's what it's meant to do. Like this, everything has a purpose. They used to say, you may have heard this before, they used to say that the appendix has no purpose. Have you heard that before? Right? Sometimes doctors would say like this, the appendix has no purpose. Nowadays they actually say, they think they've discovered the purpose of the appendix. They say that sometimes you get sick, like you say, you get dysentery, and all of the bacteria within your stomach and your intestines is just washed out. But you need that healthy bacteria in your gut. So the appendix, it keeps a little bit of that bacteria in that little sac that it is. And so if all of your good bacteria is washed out, then it preserves a little bit of it so that it can repopulate your gut with that bacteria. There you go. It has its purpose, yes? Right? So when we say something doesn't have a purpose, it may not be that it doesn't have a purpose, it just may be that we haven't discovered what the purpose is. But here's the question. What is the purpose? What is the essence? What is the dharma of the self, of the soul, of the little spark of spiritual energy that animates each one of our bodies, ourselves, us? What is the dharma of the self? And do you know what the Bhakti Yogis say that is? Who can say? Raise your hand and tell me. Anyone? Yes, Christina. Well, Satchidananda speaks to it. But this is more specific than that. What is the self designed for? Thank you very much. We can say service, or we might also, you see, service is important, but we might also say to serve with devotion or love. Okay? Let's say love, right? That the very nature of the self, the very purpose of the self, the very thing that every one of us and every living being is designed to do is to love. And to love means, as we were saying before, it means selflessness. It means that the happiness of the one that you love is your own happiness. But by nature, we always search for our own happiness, do we not? So is that selfish? Well, not if our happiness is the happiness of the one that we love. Then it becomes selfless. And the natural, spontaneous action that is born out of that love is service. Because if I'm happy when you're happy, then I serve you, and I make you happy, and then I feel happy. Right? So if that's the case, if our nature is to love, and if we have the capability to love with complete selflessness, centered around one central root, then in the highest realm of spirituality, there can be form, composed of spiritual energy, and there can be duality or individuality. There could be many, and that gives the possibility for love. Without that, there's no love. Without that, love is an illusion. This is the conclusion of Advaita Vedanta. Love is not real. In order to come to the highest level of understanding, spiritual understanding, you would have to give up the idea of love. The Bhakti Yogi saying, no, 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 no. Love is the highest principle. Love is the highest principle. Okay. So then that means by nature we are designed in connection to that root and dependent on that root. Just like a child is dependent on the parent. The parent is providing, and the child is receiving the grace of the parent. Right? But in this world, this isn't the spiritual realm where everything is in order. The yogis are saying that this realm is like a reflection of the spiritual realm. Okay? Now we're getting to your question. In the 15th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, it opens up with an analogy. Does anyone know what that analogy is? Yes. Thank you very much. The banyan tree. Yes. It says that there's a banyan tree, but that the roots are going up and the leaves are going down. It's upside down. Where do we see an upside down banyan tree? In a water or in a reflection. In a reflection. Right? Sometimes you're standing on one side of a pond, there's a tree on the other side. When you see the reflection of the tree, you see it upside down. So this analogy is it's saying that this world is like a reflected banyan tree. This world is the reflection. What is being reflected? The spiritual realm. Right? Whenever we see reflection, we know for a fact that there has to be a source of that reflection. There has to be something that is being reflected. So if this world is a reflection, then there must be another realm that is the original substance that's being reflected, and that would be the spiritual realm. And there's something very interesting about reflections. And Cersei, I want you to think about this carefully. You ready? Reflections look exactly like the source that they are reflecting. Right? If you look in a mirror, it looks exactly like you. But it's backwards or upside down. It's the exact opposite. Somehow it's exactly the same, but it's the exact opposite. Right? Okay. So if this world is a reflection of the spiritual realm, then in the spiritual realm there must be form, because there's form in this world. And in the spiritual realm there must be individuality, because there's individuality in this world. But it also must be upside down. Right? There the form is eternal, here the form is temporary. There the relationships move on the principle of love. And here they move on the principle of, you could say, lust or desire. Individual, selfish desire. So here, the relationships always lead to suffering, one way or another. Right? And because we've been living a life where relationships disappoint us, and not only one, but perhaps many lives, more than we could ever count, where relationships disappoint us, then it's not a stretch, it's not illogical that we may have trust issues with God, because we've had trust issues with all of our parent shelters. Right? The government is supposed to give shelter to the people, but we see often the government leaders are not working for the benefit of the people. Right? So we get disappointed. Right? We go to school, the teachers are supposed to care about the students. But sometimes you see they don't care about the students at all. They don't even like the students. Right? In our own romantic relationships, it's supposed to be like, I live for you, but then we see it doesn't always work out that way. And even with parents, sometimes that can also be disappointing. If we have a very healthy relationship with our parents, we feel their love. We naturally love them back. It creates a very stable state of mind for an individual. It's very helpful. Right? If that's not there, a very disturbed state of mind can arise from it. So it's natural that we have trust issues. So if we're going to trust Krishna, we're going to have to understand that he's trustworthy. It's natural that we may feel the sense of distrust, but then we're called upon to examine, investigate, see if he's trustworthy. Really try to understand his character. Now, Krishna is if you look in, if you investigate, you'll see that in many ways, Krishna is the most crooked person you can ever see in your entire life. Right? When you see Lord Vishnu, he's very straight. Right? Maybe you could invest your faith in Lord Vishnu. I mean, he's very impressive. Right? He's very big. He's very powerful. He stands straight. And he's got not only 2 arms, he's got 4 of them. And 2 of them are weapons that are very powerful and they can protect you. And 2 of them are like blessings. Conch shell and that lotus flower. How sweet, right? Krishna doesn't stand straight. He's very crooked, right? Vishnu, only truth emanates from Vishnu. Krishna, he is lying all of the time. All the time he's lying. He's stealing. Right from the young age, he's stealing butter. Krishna stole the clothes of the gopis when they were bathing in the river. All these things that he's doing, right? All of these things, stealing, lying, cheating. Krishna cheats too. In the material realm, they're bad things. But in the original, they're actually very good. Because he cheats out of love. He lies out of love. He steals out of love. Right? So one might look at him and say, I don't know if I can trust him. But if you really look into it, you see that he is the original God of love. He is this. I want to share this with you. Imagine you had power, like real power. Huh? Power like influence. Power like you could move this world. Power like, people had to obey, your influence. Whether you had tons of money, tons of fame, tons of, certain people in this world have more ability to move this world than others. There's a saying people say that power corrupts. And absolute power corrupts absolutely. Right? They say like that. Well, we hear that Krishna has absolute power. So we might be inclined to think, well, he must be absolutely corrupt. But if you really look, this is really interesting what Krishna does. Krishna, sometimes it's said that Krishna is the God of love. You've heard that before? God of love? And sometimes we think of that in kind of in a kitschy way. Oh, he's running around with the girls, he's playing his flute, and he's dancing. And yes, he's the God of love like that. But if we really understand what it means, this is really important. I want you to hear this. Krishna, although he has all power, he's not interested in power. He's only interested in love. And let's examine if this is true, right? Some living beings want to live independently from him. He says, if that's what you want, I'll provide that for you. I want you here with me. I want to embrace you and share my love with you. But if you want to exist separately from me, I will create the virtual reality in which you can try to experience existence in separation from me. Really, I'm providing that realm too. You're an illusion if you're thinking you're separate from me, but I'll give you that experience through illusion. But that realm will need to be maintained, right? Krishna is not interested in personally doing that because he's only interested in love. But he can expand himself into Vishnu. And Vishnu maintains the material realms, right? And he can empower other beings. There's going to need to be within this realm, there's going to need to be a water department, right? Because without that, we're not going to be able to survive. he gives Indra the power. You're the head of the water department. There's going to have to be a heat and light department. To the god Surya, he says, you take that. I have the power, but I'm going to give that power to you. You be the heat and light power, right? And like this, all the things that we receive in this world, Krishna gives others the power. There's also a judge. Got to be a judge. There's got to be a justice department. You know who's in charge of the justice? Yamaraj, right? Yamaraj is the judge. A lot of times when people have issues with the personal God, they don't want to have to see that judge. Right? A lot of times judges are corrupt. Right? And there's someone that's getting off on their power trip, judging, punishing. Krishna's like, I'm not interested in judging. I'm not interested in punishing. What is he interested in? Thank you. He's only interested in a beautiful, wild, creative adventures of love. And that's what he absorbs himself in entirely. He doesn't come and judge. He's not interested in it. That tells us something about his character, does it not? Is it a little comforting? I'm going to tell you something more. You ready? Krishna not only has all this power, but because he really understands love. And he understands that within love, a lot of times these movies about love, I said there's someone expressing their love and there's someone resisting the love, right? And why are they resisting the love? Because they're scared. They've been hurt, right? They've been hurt. And so, although, and the audience is watching and say, no, accept the love. Accept the love. And the person's resisting love. And then circumstances happen in the movie. And some kind of intense circumstance happens where the person that has been expressing the love has to do something wonderful and heroic in which their love is demonstrated. The purity of their love is demonstrated. And that love conquers the object of the love. And then they say, oh, they're not like all the others. They're different. Their love is pure. I surrender. And they accept the love. And then everything has reached its perfect conclusion. And you walk out of the movie theater feeling good. Right? So Krishna, he recognizes this power of love. He recognizes that, you see, the person, when they surrender, they become vulnerable to the love. And therefore they're hesitant to accept the love, because once they accept love, you become vulnerable. There's no other way to love except in a vulnerable state. Krishna, because he's only interested in love, he voluntarily accepts vulnerability, although he's all-powerful. Although one name for Krishna is Ajita. It means unconquerable. But Krishna becomes conquered by love. So the Ajita becomes Jita. The inconquerable becomes conquered by love. That's why it's said that this pure love, this prema, is a very rare thing. Right? Because it controls Krishna. Moksha, right? Freedom from the sufferings of this world, he'll give that easily. You want that? You can have it. But for him to give prema, pure love in the heart, if he gives that out, he knows he can become conquered by it. So one really has to prove himself. But he becomes vulnerable to that love. Look at little Krishna, the thief, the butter thief. Okay? You've all heard about this pastime, Krishna, when he's stealing butter. Maybe you've seen the paintings of it. It's cute, it's sweet. So we can say, oh, look how sweet. Yes, the God of love. There's a lot of meaning in this. Incredibly deep theology in this. Right? Little baby Krishna, his mother's feeding him, breastfeeding him. Right? And what's happened when she's breastfeeding him? It's like in every way she's offering her love. And in every way he's right in her warm arms. He's drinking the love of her in the form of milk right from her breasts. And he's looking up at her eyes, and her eyes are looking down at his eyes, and it's just a perfect exchange of love. And then, because she's always absorbed in loving service, she has some milk cooking on the stove in which she's going to make some wonderful preparation for his pleasure. But then she sees, oh no, it's boiling over, right? So she's like, I have to put him down and go over and take care of this milk. But when she puts him down, Krishna's like, what? What are you doing? We had this loving connection and now you've broken it. This isn't right. This isn't fair. Why are you doing this to me? I'm going to rebel. And so he sneaks off. And they used to hang the butter up high so that the monkeys couldn't get to it and so that Krishna couldn't get to it, quite frankly. He finds a way to get up there. He breaks the pot. He's eating the butter. You know, if you have the real butter, how many of you tasted real, fresh, just churned butter? Not the stuff, the hard stuff you buy in the store. The Indian people have had this. Right? It's sweet, right? It's not just like, if you just ate a regular bar of butter that you buy in the store, it's not the same. But this stuff, oh, it's delicious. And Krishna's, he's eating it. He's sharing it with his friends. The monkeys are coming. He's passing it out to the monkeys. Then he hears his mother's coming. Krishna, where are you? Krishna, what are you doing? And he starts to run because he knows he's in trouble, right? And he runs right through the butter. And Krishna somehow has these very beautiful feet, right? And he's running, and he's leaving butter footprints as he runs. And his mother is simultaneously, her heart is melting because this is so adorable. But at the same time, she's like, he's my son and I need to discipline him. And so she's chasing after him and she captures him. Why are you doing this, Krishna? Why are you stealing the butter? Right? I give you so much. I give you the best stuff. And I didn't steal the butter. It's got butter all over him. He's got butter footprints. The evidence is all over the place. I didn't. Now first he was stealing. Now he's lying. Right? She's like, I'm going to have to punish you. I'm going to have to tie you up. Right? So they have this grinding mortar. It's like a big wooden thing. It's like a kind of like an hourglass shaped thing where you grind the grains in there. And she gets some rope. I'm going to tie you up. So long story short, she has a hard time tying him. But eventually she succeeds. How can you tie up that being with everything exists in it? The form of Krishna, everything is within it. How can you tie it? There's only one way that you can tie it. That's with love. So it's her love that binds him. And Krishna becomes vulnerable to one's love. That's who Krishna is. He can be trusted. So much so that even though he has all the power, he gives it away. He gives it to the one that he loves. And he becomes conquered by them. It's said that Krishna, there's a name for Krishna. Madan Mohan. You've heard of this before? Who is Madan? Who is Madan? Cupid, thank you. Cupid, right? The guy, he's the one that shoots the arrow in your heart and you fall in love. So Cupid's very powerful because how many of you have ever fallen in love before? Be honest. Come on. Thank you. Yes, everybody? Okay. Yeah. And so when that arrow hits your heart, you're just bewildered, you know? So Cupid has the power to bewilder others with these arrows of love. Krishna is so beautiful that he bewilders Cupid. Right? Cupid becomes bewildered by him. But there's a name for Srimati Radharani. Madan Mohan Mohini. She is the bewilderer of the bewilderer of Cupid. Her love, her beauty bewilders Krishna. And he becomes like a plaything. A plaything in the hand of Radharani. A plaything in the hand of his mother and the elderly gopis. They can tell Krishna, Krishna, stand up. Krishna, go over here. Krishna, You sing a song for us and we'll give you a sweet. He's like that. Because he's controlled by that love. If you read these texts and you open yourself up, you'll see that there's a conception of the divine unlike anything you can find anywhere else in this Krishna theology, this Krishna Bhakti theology. If you really look into it, I'm going to share just one more thing. I mentioned this mother's love, and the baby's looking up and feeling the love coming from the mother. But what's more intense is the love that the mother's feeling. The baby's like, this is so nice. But the mother's like, oh my God, my heart is melting. There's a principle in love that it's wonderful to feel love from another, but the more intense feeling is to feel the love in your own heart for another. That's a more powerful experience. And the most powerful love that you can feel in your heart is the love for God, because God is the perfect object of love. Okay? So the Dharma that's shared by every living being in existence is to love God, to love Krishna. Every one of them has the potential for that to fully arise in their heart. But there's only one being in existence that cannot have that experience. Who is that being? It's Krishna himself. He does not know what it's like to love the perfect object of love himself. And he's seeing the experience of Srimati Radharani and the gopis. And he's saying it is the feeling of being loved by them is completely overwhelming. The sweetness of it is indescribable. But somehow what she is experiencing is more than what I'm experiencing. Somehow she's capable of experiencing a deeper type of happiness and bliss than I. And I'm God, and I'm not capable of experiencing it. Interesting, is it not? He says, I must understand what that's like if I'm going to have the highest experience that exists. And so he comes as Sri Chaitanya. And as Sri Chaitanya, he becomes the follower of Srimati Radharani. He wants to know, how does she love? I want to go to school and I want to learn how she loves. Because he knows that is the highest thing. At the end of the Rasa Leela, Krishna turns to the gopis of Vrindavan and says, I wish I could repay your love. You've given me your love, and I feel like I need to reciprocate with it. And I'm giving all that I can. But there's nothing in existence that is as wonderful and as valuable as what you already have. So what can I give you? The love that you have in your heart is the very highest thing. I simply pray that you will be happy with that love, because there's nothing more that I can give. So actually our position is in surrender to God, in our giving up our resistance of accepting God's love. That position is the highest bliss, the highest satisfaction. So much so that God wishes he could experience it himself. So you need to really understand this. And if the deeper you go into, I believe, if you go into it with an open-minded heart, and if you follow the path carefully, being very careful to be kind and loving to every living being, not offending any living being, and chanting that mantra, right, and reading about Krishna's Leelas, you'll begin to understand who he is, and your trust issues will gradually begin to diminish. Okay? Is that all right? Okay. It's a very important question. It's maybe the most important question. Right? Why do I not surrender to Krishna? Is it safe? Can I do that? This is the question we all have to answer for ourselves. Thank you. That was just one question so far. How much time huh? We went for 1 hour. Okay, so we have a half hour left. Are there any more questions? Yes.
With that explanation, with whatever I've heard, I felt like even God's love is conditional. Whoever chants more will get more? I'm sorry if I have interrupted it. I mean wrongly.
It's not quite like that. It's not that God is saying, whoever chants more gets my love. Um, his love is for everyone. Sometimes it's like said, like the rain is falling all over the fields. But what grows, different things grow because of the seed. The seeds. Hare. Because the seeds are different, different things grow. And so Krishna's love is there for everyone. It's there, yeah. It's not because you chant more, he loves you. But when someone loves him selflessly, he becomes particularly inclined and indebted to that person. And that's not exactly how much you chant. This love is not a mechanical thing. Because you see, when you chant, it could be coming from two different places. It can be coming from here, the mouth, or it can be coming from here, the heart. Right? So the great sages, they say when we chant, it can't just be this. I'll give you an example. This one great saint, his name is Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. He's the guru of our Srila Prabhupada. And he said that the holy name of Krishna that we chant when we chant Mahamantra, he said that the syllables, he said there's something like a capsule. You know, medicine comes in a capsule, right? And you can put different things inside the capsule. Two capsules look the same, but they may have different medicine in them. He said that the vibration of Krishna's name is something like that. When we chant it, it could be empty, or it could be full of love from the heart, right? So the real chanting of the mantra is when it's chanted not just from the mouth. He said that actually the sound is not different from Krishna and descends from the spiritual realm, and then it enters into the ear, it goes to the heart, and then it arises from the heart and comes through the mouth. And when that is chanted, that's the real chanting. That's the real. It's not how many times you do it. But he's looking to see if he loves everyone, but he's looking to see if we turn back to him with love. And as soon as we do, he takes one back. Okay? He says in the Bhagavad Gita, I'm not partial to anyone, but when one turns to me with selfless love, I love them like I love my own self. Thank you. Another question.
So, kind of embarrassed but authentic to say, I really don't know anything about Hinduism, about Krishna, or all the other names you said. Can you give me a 101?
A 101 about Krishna himself, or a 101 about like Hinduism in general?
Whatever you feel called.
Okay. Well, that's a big question, and I spent 1 hour on the previous question. The word Hinduism isn't found in any of the sacred texts that Hinduism comes from. It's actually a more modern term. It only goes back so many, I don't know how many centuries, but it doesn't go back thousands of years like the faiths that we find in India. But it encompasses many different ideas. But generally they're coming from one body of literature, which we could call the Vedic literature. And those literatures speak to people on many different levels. They'll encourage you to advance. Sometimes they're encouraging you to do good works in this world so that you'll get good results. Be kind to others and you'll get kindness. Be generous to others and you'll get generosity. And in this way you can live relatively happily in this world. And that's a step up for many people. That's a big step in their evolution. There are other texts that speak about, you know what, this world is not meant for us to be enjoying. If you look more deeply into it, you'll see it's a place of suffering. It's kind of like living in a prison and saying, how much can I enjoy here? The point of prison is not how nice can I make my cell. You know, can I make my prison cell a little bit more comfortable? No, you should really be thinking, how do I get out of the prison? And so certain of these texts say, don't try to do good things to get good things in this world. Let go of everything in this world and try to become free of this world. Escape it. And that's called moksha. So some of the texts are saying embrace this world. And then some of the texts are saying, no, let go of this world. And then there are other texts that are saying, whether I'm trying to enjoy this world or whether I'm trying to escape from this world, both of those considerations are actually self-centered. And they don't really reach the highest realm, the full evolution that we're capable of achieving. And that full evolution of what we're capable of achieving is when we give up all selfishness and we operate out of love. So this world is not meant for me to enjoy. This world is not meant for me to escape. This world is all the energy of the origin of all existence, beautiful Sri Krishna. And my role is just to reconnect with him in whatever way that I can, in whatever way my own individual creative love manifests, and that's called bhakti. So it's 3 levels. One's called karma, one's called jnana, one's called bhakti. This is the full evolution that it leads to. And so you'll hear about many gods, many goddesses, and many different practices. There's validity in practically all of them. Sometimes the occasional cheater comes along, and that's like anything else in this world. But there's a wide variety of true, valid practices. But certain of these texts were written to clarify it all. A text like the Bhagavad Gita was written to clarify it all, to help you understand all of them. Or another text like the Srimad Bhagavatam. And those show you that you can evolve through these different stages. And the full evolution of the soul is called love or bhakti. And when we feel love for the origin of all existence, then we feel love for all existence. Because all of the existence is in connection to that source. And that's called bhakti. And that's the highest goal that we can find in this tradition. Is that okay? Quick little 101. Thank you for the question. Any other questions out there? New people, have you come with a question? Yes.
Maybe you already explained it. Okay. But like the chants have any explanation, maybe scientific or like it's like a meditation, or why we feel so good when we chant, or like, what is the explanation behind that? And even if we believe in Krishna or not, like is something happening in our body, in our mind, so it has any explanation?
That was a good question. Yes. I'll answer it. We also post these to YouTube too, so you can see them there. Yeah, but you can record if you like. About 500 years, there's a tradition of bhakti, of this love that comes down historically, and you can read about great teachers who taught about it and great saints who experienced it throughout this tradition. And there's different types of love, different types of bhakti. Some of the bhakti it's a love that's with awe and reverence. One way to love God is like this, in saying, you are very great and I am very small, but you give me everything and I love you. There's another type of love. And that type of love is, I don't love you with awe and reverence, I love you intimately. The way that one friend loves another friend is not like one is thinking you're greater than me. We're equals. Or the love that a parent has for a child, the parent actually feels like you're dependent on me. Or the love between two lovers, right? This is the most, you could say, the most intimate and intense type of love. Now, that special type of love has always been there. But everything goes through cycles. And sometimes something is hidden and then it comes out again. So about 500 years ago, that kind of love started to come out again. Certain great saints began to say, look back at these ancient texts, and if you look at them closely, you'll see that there's a special type of love. And one of the great teachers of that was named Sri Chaitanya. He appeared in this world about 500 years ago. In our tradition, we understand that he is Krishna himself coming to experience that kind of love. And so he practices it. And this is really esoteric. But since you asked such an important question, I feel like I'll share this. Sri Krishna sees the love of Radha, and he's saying what she's experiencing is the most intense type of love. I want to know what that's like. So he appears as his own devotee as Sri Chaitanya. Krishna becomes as Chaitanya, trying to follow the love of Radha, know what it's like, experience it. Radha's love is called, there's a word prema. You've heard that word before? Prema. It means spiritual love for God. But the love that she feels is the highest level of love, the most intense experience that there is. And Sri Chaitanya comes and feels that love. But there's this really important teaching that when you feel love for God, that's one feeling. When you take that same heart and turn it towards the rest of the world, what you feel is compassion. Right? It's love if it's facing this way, and if it faces back to the rest of the world, that same love is called compassion. You feel a pain for the suffering of others. And when Sri Chaitanya, because he's feeling the highest love, he's feeling the highest compassion. And he's saying this intimate love, that's a very rare thing, I want the whole world to feel it. And he wants to create, do you know the word sadhana? Sadhana? It means a spiritual practice. He wants to give everybody a spiritual practice by which they can experience this. And he says the way that, the most fundamental way that I'll do this is I'm going to go back into the sacred texts called the Upanishads and take one mantra. And that's the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. He takes it from this ancient... It was there all along, but most people didn't focus on it. You know, there are 108 Upanishads. And there's so many kinds of teachings in them. But he said, this has been neglected. This is really important, but not everybody is seeing this. That within this mantra, Hare Krishna, Hare is referring to Radha, to Radharani. You know who Radharani is? Okay, this is this is Krishna's lover. Right? She is the embodiment of divine love. So it's Hare Krishna, Radha Krishna, Radha Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Radha Radha. That's what the Hare Krishna mantra is. It's worshiping the divine male and female together and the love that they share. This mantra, it's said that these mantras are not created by any person, that they come from the spiritual realm. Golokera Prema Dana, from Goloka Vrindavan, from the spiritual world. Harinama Sankirtana, this kirtan, this sankirtan, is the sound of the love of the spiritual realm, contained in a mantra. And so he says, if you chant this mantra, he said, 5 or 10 of you come together, clap your hands, and sing this mantra, and be very careful not to be unkind to anyone. And if you do this, you'll begin to feel this love. So the idea is this is not an ordinary sound. It's non-different from Radha and Krishna. It descends from the spiritual realm. Your own spiritual identity beyond this world can be revealed within this mantra. And if you chant it, basically the formula is given like this. It's a very famous and important verse. Trinad api sunichena. Be more humble than a blade of grass. I don't need to be the one that's being praised all the time. I don't need to. We have one president in America right now. He wants everybody to praise him. Why am I not being praised enough? They should be giving me this award. He's always complaining like this, right? Don't be like that. Be humble. I don't need anybody praising me. That's not where happiness comes from others praising me all the time. Be more humble than a blade of grass. Chinada pisanichina. Tador ivasu hishnana. Be more tolerant than a tree. Sometimes things aren't quite right in this world. This world is always going up and down and up and down. And what we do, we complain about it all the time. Oh my God, it's too hot. Oh my God, it's too cold. Oh my God, this person is not appreciating me enough. They're saying bad things about me. Oh, why isn't this way? Why isn't this? You know what? Just let all that go. Just accept a sadhu, a sage, a yogi. They say, I know that this world is going up and down, up and down, up and down all the time. I've already come to terms with that. So I can be tolerant. If something isn't going just my way, it doesn't disturb my mind. Be more humble than a blade of grass, more tolerant than a tree. Offer all respects to every living being. Be kind, be respectful to everyone. And don't demand respect for oneself. I'm okay. If you adopt this mood, then when you chant this mantra, then it says Kirtanaya Sadahari. Then you can chant this mantra eternally. You can become fully absorbed in it. And everything will come out of that. So a person like you, if you go and you chant this, even you're unfamiliar with it, but if you're kind to others, if you're respectful to others, then you're going to feel something in your heart. You're going to feel something special arise in you. Something, this is different. So I think this is what you're feeling. And in ancient times in India, you may have seen it, even like right here. Do you see, have you looked into that little structure right there? That there's a building right there, and inside it has a square bricks, and they chant mantras and they light a fire and then they pour offerings into the fire. It's a way of connecting with God in a formal way. And it's said in previous ages this is the way people would connect to God. But in this age, we're not good at that in the long time ago, very long time ago, the way they connect God is just in meditation. But nowadays our minds are too disturbed, we're not good at that. And then after that, but still many centuries ago, they would do these fire yagas. They would have to chant the mantras very precisely and offer very pure things. But in this day, we're bad at chanting very precisely and we don't have pure things to offer. But in this day, which is the worst age, most difficult age, most disturbed age, the benefit of it is that just by chanting this mantra, we come together and chant with one voice, and just by this process, we can achieve the highest goal of yoga. So I think you're tasting it a little bit, and I encourage you to please continue. I think you'll find a lot in it. Okay. What is your name? And where are you from? From Russia. Oh, Argentina. Okay. I thought it sounded like a South American accent. Argentina. Nice to meet you. Time? Okay. Any other questions? We can take one or two more questions. Anyone in the back row? In the middle row? Yes? You go okay? Anybody else? We need a question. Otherwise, we'll have to end early. Which we can do. Still much more going on. My friend.
Thank you so much for all of these beautiful shares. Going back to the japa question, the chanting of the Mahamantra. When we're chanting on our japa, and we have this intention to do so many rounds, but it's empty. Are we supposed to still continue chanting those rounds? I've heard people say chant them and eventually you'll acquire a taste. But then aren't we training ourselves into a bad habit of also chanting with distraction?
Well, we should chant. There are three levels of chanting. One is called Nam Aparad. Aparad sometimes is translated in English as offense. It doesn't quite capture exactly what the Aradhana means. to worship with love. Aradhana. So up aradhana means what you're doing is actually counteractive to loving worship. So when we chant without attention, you see, if that, as we were saying, if that mantra is from the spiritual realm and is non-different from Krishna, and we're chanting it but our attention is elsewhere, then it's kind of like someone very dear, you have invited someone very dear to come into your home and you ignored them. It's not good for your relationship. But if you never invite them over, you're also not going to have much of a relationship either, right? So we have to invite them into our home, and then we have to show them the proper attention. So similarly, if we stop chanting, that's also not going to be good for. We have to chant, but then we have to come to the second level of chanting, namabhas. It's not quite the real chanting, but you're moving towards it, and even this namabhas is very transformative. If you can come to that stage, it will have a very powerful spiritual transformative effect on the mind and the heart. And that means that we're honoring all living beings properly, trying to see God in every living being, and chanting with the effort to bring my loving attention to the name. That will be very powerful. Now, the great sage, the very important sage, Srila Rupa Goswami. Right? In our lineage, we are called Rupanugas. We're the followers of Rupa. He explains so much about bhakti to us, and lived such a beautiful life, and wrote the most incredible poetry. He wrote. I'll share one verse that he wrote of poetry about the holy name. One time, he went to Jagannath Puri, and there he saw Sri Chaitanya, and he was asked to share some of his poetry, but he was very shy. He's considered the greatest of poets, but he was very shy to share his poetry because he was very humble. But Sri Chaitanya was there, and the great saint Haridas Thakur was there. This was where Haridas Thakur lived. He lived under a tree, and he was so humble he felt, I'm not qualified to go into the temple of Jagannath. But he chanted with the deepest love. So he's called the Nama Acharya, the Acharya of the holy names. So Sri Chaitanya said, tell me some of your poetry. I want to hear. He said, I can't tell. It's not so good. No, I want to hear. I order you. So he sang this verse, which glorifies the holy names of Krishna. Tunde tandavali ratimbatanute tandavali labdhaye karna krodha kadambani gajayate karnevyudevya spriham cheta pragyana sangani vijayate. Na jane janita kriyadbir amritai krishneti varnadvai. Don't remember the whole thing. Slip in my mind. You got it? Okay. But this verse says, when the holy name of Krishna is dancing on my tongue, I wish I had many thousands of tongues. I just can't taste it enough. And when the holy name of Krishna, Mahamantra, enters into my ears, I feel like I don't have enough ears. I wish I had many millions of ears. You know, have you ever noticed sometimes when a woman holds a little baby, they say something like, oh, I just want to eat you, right? It's just like, you're so cute that just seeing you is not enough. You know, I don't have enough eyes to see you, to take it all in. So when he chants the holy name, he feels like he doesn't have enough tongues to taste it. He doesn't have enough ears to hear it. He says, when that holy name enters into the courtyard of my heart, this is a very yogic description. Cheta pragyana sangani vijayate sarvendriyana kritim. That's what it is. Sarva indriya, all of my senses become conquered by it. Right? he becomes stunned. He enters into samadhi, you could say. And then he says, Na jane janita kriya biramritai krishneti varnadvayi. I do not know how much nectar is in the two syllables Krishna. I can't measure it. When he said this verse of poetry, Haridas Thakur jumped up in the air. This is the most beautiful thing I've ever heard. Like someone understands what I'm experiencing when I chant this name. So the next day, Sri Chaitanya brought all the most important Rasika Bhaktas, those devotees that understood deep spirituality the most. When they heard this, they said, "This we've heard wonderful poetry before. We've never heard like this before." Now Rupa Goswami wrote another verse about the holy name for people that aren't on that level. And he used an analogy. He said the holy name is like sugar candy. It's very, very sweet. But if we're just practicing this and are new to this, it's like we're in a disease condition called jaundice. You all know what jaundice is? Jaundice is this disease that you get. Your skin turns yellow, your eyes turn yellow, and if you eat anything sweet, it tastes bitter. Right? Huh?
It is hepatitis A.
It's a type of hepatitis A. Hepatitis A. Thank you.
Your bile gets into your bloodstream.
Okay. Yeah, very thorough analysis. Thank you. So anything you eat tastes bitter, and sweet things taste particularly bitter. But the cure for jaundice is actually the sugar rock candy. You eat that candy and you're eating it and it tastes bitter. But as you start to get better, it starts to taste less bitter. And you know that you're completely healed when you eat it and it tastes sweet again. And so he's saying our chanting of the holy name is like that. If we're in the diseased condition, materialistic condition, that when we chant it, we don't feel the sweetness in it. We don't taste the sweetness in it. We're diseased. But the cure is that you keep chanting it. And as you chant it, it'll start to taste sweeter and sweeter. And when we're completely relieved of all of our material conditioning, all of our selfishness, all of our lust, greed, anger, when we're free of all of that, when we chant that name, it'll taste sweet like sugar. So please keep chanting and you will get there. But try. Give it your full effort. Read about the holy name and read about the great saints and associate closely with people who have a taste for that name, and you'll a type of impatience with your own impurities will arise in you, strong enough that you'll let them go and you'll focus more attention on the practice, and you'll grow. Okay. Thank you all so much. It's been wonderful spending this time with you. We're here every night. Huh? And in the mornings at my friend Yogi True, a brilliant yoga and meditation teacher, gives a class from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. in the hall here. And then I speak on yoga philosophy and bhakti philosophy from 9 until 9:50. So please join us there if you wish. Happy to see you there. It's been a pleasure spending this evening with you. Hari Om Tat Sat.